Hi, everybody. My name is Minda Hartz. Welcome to Secure the Seat Live. We're so excited to have you here with us. You could be anywhere on the internet right now, and you're here with me. You're having lunch, maybe, depending on where you are in the country, or maybe you're having breakfast, but you get to listen in on a really great conversation. Here's the thing. Go tell somebody about this conversation right now, because we want as many people to listen in and chime in. And if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the box. Karen, welcome to Secure the Seat. How are you?
I'm a hot mess and totally completely, but I am grateful beyond measure to be here with you, and to center on this conversation is giving me a lot of joy this morning. How about you, Minda? How are you?
You know, I am what they say. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I possibly can, because I know that my stress level is high. I know that many people's stress level is high, but I'm glad that I get to have a conversation that you and I have been having for a while together. But, you know, for those who don't know, Karen Fleshman, she's a friend. She is the founder of Racy Conversations. She is a future author of a coming book, so many things, public speaker, the things advocate, mother. But Karen, tell everybody just a little bit more about you before we dive into today's conversation.
Yeah, so this month marks 6 years since I founded Racy Conversations. My prior career was in preparing young adults of color for careers in tech. And the Ferguson uprising really, opened my eyes to so many things. It wasn't as if I hadn't been aware of police brutality before, but it made me stand up in my own life and walk out of a very unhappy marriage and start my own life. And it made me realize that racism was the underlying problem in our society. So when Darren Wilson wasn't indicted for killing Mike Brown, that's it. When I said I'm going to stop preparing young adults of color for corporate careers and start preparing the workplace for young adults of color.
I love that. And, you know, it's so interesting, because I think, especially this week, I mean, you've been doing this work for a long time, but I think it's important for people to see Black and white women talking, having conversations, not only having conversations, but having real relationships, authentic relationships, because we don't get to see that mirrored enough. And so, but where I want to start, though, is we hear a lot around Karens, right? And I'm sure that you get a lot of pushback, you know, and maybe even name calling. But how did you become Common Sense Karen? Let's start there.
Well, I have to admit, Minda, every time I say my name in public now, I do blush, and I feel this kind of like, but I see Karen, hashtag Karen, as a very important mirror that all white women need to look at. And she lives in me too. How I became Common Sense Karen is because of my relationships with women, with Black women, with women of color, with young Black men who I mentored as they began their careers. If I just consider myself incredibly fortunate, because most white women I know my age, when we go to any kind of social event, everyone there is white, with maybe a few Asian Americans. And when I go to a social event that one of my Black women friends invites me to, I'm one of maybe 2 white women who are there. So how I became Common Sense Karen was just by listening and observing. I also, throughout my career, I worked in majority people of color organizations. Almost all of my bosses have been women of color. And I had to, and we were serving people of color too. So I had to figure out how to be a white woman in those spaces. And it was a lot about humbling myself and not being like, oh, I am the authority on this. I am the leader. I am the center. But it's like the people who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And my role is to support them and to uplift them and to do whatever I can to shield them from all the harm that is directed at them as they try to make change in this world.
I love that, and thank you for your vulnerability and your candor about it, because I know it isn't easy putting ourselves in different spaces sometimes. And I will say, even when I met you a few years ago, and you were talking about white supremacy, I'm like, who is this white lady? Is she for real? Because I never heard a white woman like admit that they have been a participant and sometimes participate in systems of oppression. And it was very foreign to me. I was like, what is going on here? But the more I started to get to know you, it just made so much sense. And I love that you do the work. Like, you never, we have conversation about it, like, very honest and open, and you never, in my experience with you, you've never burdened me to give you solutions on how to be better. Like, you do the work, and we talk about these things. I remember when I think I was talking about Audre Lorde during one of our early conversations. Next thing I know, you had gotten your hands on some of Audrey's work and you were doing it. Like, I didn't have to tell you that. And that's part of that common sense part of it that I just love. And so if you have questions as we're talking, please put them in the chat, because I definitely want us to get to it. But Karen, here's the next question I have for you. We're in election week. As if people may not be aware. If you don't know, then good for you, because I can't seem to get away from it. But hopefully everybody has voted or plans to vote today or tomorrow. But my question to you is, almost 4 years ago, an overwhelming amount of white women voted for Donald Trump. And it was the most devastating thing for women like myself, and maybe other women as well. But I don't know what the outcome is going to be this week, Karen. Where do we go from here? Because so many of us are worried, that we might see that again.
Yeah, as am I. But I tell you, I am optimistic that white women's voting patterns are going to be significantly different in this election. I think that a lot of white women who haven't voted previously are voting, and a significant number of white women who voted for Trump are going to vote for Biden in this election. And what is giving me that is seeing the 2018 outcome. So in 2018, the Democrats took back the House of Representatives, and it was a significant number of white women voters who had voted for Trump who came out and voted for Democrats in that election. In the special election in Alabama for Doug Jones, it was Black women voters who got that outcome, but white millennials joined with Black women voters. Older white women, the evangelicals, the ones who are deeply bought into patriarchy and white supremacy, I don't think we can peel them off. And then there's a significant number of white women who see in Trump their family's economic self-interest being served. But I think there is a whole other group of white women who are mothers, many of them, and cannot stomach having him as our national role model when you wouldn't want your own child to behave like that. But I tell you, we are 1 week after Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation. And for me, that was even more traumatic than Brett Kavanaugh, just to see that it's going to be a white woman who's going to roll back our rights, and a highly educated white woman who could be anything chooses that this is what she wants to be, the handmaiden of the patriarchy. It just makes me so sad, honestly. It makes me sad for her. It makes me sad for women. It just makes me want to bang my head against the wall.
Yeah, it makes me want to bang my head against the wall too. But I'm hopeful that she'll sit with some of the response that she's seen and heard, and hopefully she'll think about how she's affecting the majority of the country, right? And govern from that place and not from her own perspective necessarily. But I appreciate you talking about that, because I do think that there is this kind of side eye moment, and to your point, in 2018, we did see some change, right? And so that's what gives me, makes me optimistic for the future. But what I want to do, I want to take a couple questions from the audience, and then we'll jump back into our conversation. Someone's asking, Karen, and we're getting a lot of buzz, Karen. They're saying, thank you for your work. So the question is, I'm paraphrasing, but how do I get my other white women friends to become common sense too?
Well, Dr. Ibram Kendi is a huge influence, and he says racism is born out of self-interest and it only dies out of self-interest. If you're trying to get your white women friends to wake up, I highly recommend Alicia Garza's new book, The Purpose of Power. And I just want to read a little passage from it. The racialized patriarchy is not a one-directional phenomenon. It is not as simple as men being supported to curtail the dignity and well-being of women. I mean, yes, this is a big part of the problem, but there are other side effects, like the way some women step on other women's necks for a few more crumbs. To me, though, one of the most significant ways of why the racialized patriarchy completely sucks is the way that it robs men and male-identified people of meaningful and intimate relationships with the people they care about. The racialized patriarchy prevents men and male-identified people from having relationships with other men and male-identified people that aren't rooted in violence of some kind. And I think it's the same thing with racism and women. Like, white women are harmed by our racist beliefs because it denies us the opportunity to have true relationships with Black women. It denies us the opportunity to create freedom and safety. We live in a country where 3 women are murdered every day, 600 women are raped every day. Like, I look at my daughter and I just want to homeschool her for college. Like, I don't want to send her out into this world because it's so unsafe for her. And the only way we're going to create safety for women is for women to be united. And that's exactly why the patriarchy has worked so hard to divide us.
Yeah, well said. And thank you for reading that passage. Can you say the name of that book just one more time?
Yes. So it's Black Lives Matter co-founder Alicia Garza's new book. Let me see if I can. Oh, it's called The Purpose of Power: How We Come Together When We Fall Apart. And I it's giving me a ton of hope. She, is such a fighter and so determined and is so rooted in how do we engage community? How do we listen? And that's what I think we need to do with women, is to really listen to women and figure out how we can come together to create a society that works for everyone.
Yes, I'm all about making work for everybody. Another question from the audience, Karen, is what do you want to tell a Black woman who has a history of not trusting white women because of what they've experienced? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that's 100% legit. I mean, when we come into the workplace, we are coming in with 400 years of intergenerational trauma, right? So you have inside of you the intergenerational trauma of what your ancestors experienced from the hands of people who look like me. So your sensors of danger are extremely, extremely high. And you're not going to trust me until you can see from my behavior that I can be trusted. Now, I'm carrying intergenerational trauma too, because all of that pain that my ancestors inflicted on yours harmed us and caused us to have trauma too. And we're so scared that we're going to be held to account for the terrible things that we did that causes us that comes out in our inability to self-regulate and to cause further harm, to continue to assert our dominance. And so I would say, you know, I hope that you can find some white women in your life who will demonstrate to you through their behavior that we can be trusted. But I would agree with her not to trust us until you actually see that it is so. And to white women, I would say we have to change our behavior. Do we want to be Amy Cooper? Is that who we are? Is that who we choose? Do we choose to be Amy Barrett? No, white women. No, we have to work on ourselves, heal this intergenerational trauma, and show up as authentic allies. I'm sure you talk about it all the time, this Lean In study that said 80% of white women believe that we're allies, but only 26% of Black women say that they have allies.
There is a disconnect, you know, between the active allyship and calling yourself an allyship. And that's really great advice. I appreciate you giving perspective on that. You know, something that you said really hit me in terms of just closing that empathy gap, which, you know, we've talked about in the past. Recently, I'm doing some roundtables with young girls of color for one of my books that are coming out called You Are More Than Magic. It's an adaptation of the memo for young adults. And I asked, you know, just last week, some 18, 19-year-old young ladies, I said, you know, what has been your relationship with white girls? You know, how do you feel about them? Are they part of your friend circle? And I would say an overwhelming amount of them said they don't have any white girlfriends because of some situations that they've experienced in elementary school and junior high school. And a lot of them said that they didn't trust them. And it really broke my heart because it's happening on both sides, right? These things that are taking place, and we take those experiences into the workplace, and then we do have side eye, you know, with people. And you know, I had some conversation on those roundtables saying that, you know, not every white woman is bad, but take your time to assess who those people are that you should allow in your life, you know. But there will be people that you do meet who do mean well, you know, who won't cause you harm. I said, but, you know, I had to apologize that they've had those early experiences where they felt that way, you know, or even in their class in college, they're feeling this way towards some white, you know, women in their experiences. So I think I know we talk a lot about the workplace, but it also starts with our kids too. Wouldn't you say, Karen?
100%. And as you're talking about that to me is a failure on the part of the parents of those white girls. It's a failure on the part of the teachers who are not recognizing that harm is occurring and addressing it. And it's a product of a very segregated educational system and residential system that's all, you know, there's public policy and then there's private choices that white parents make of where they're going to live, where we're going to send our kids to school, and what kind of dynamics are going to occur at those schools. And my heart goes out to Black parents because I don't know what I would do, honestly. I think I would want to homeschool my kids because there's so few school environments where Black children can fully thrive. And it makes me so angry. Like, why can't we get better at this? Okay. Why can't we acknowledge it? And even like listening to Amy Coney Barrett, not to keep going back to it, but it's like, I'm sure in her mind, she isn't racist. She doesn't have, you know, and when Cory Booker asked her, well, have you done any work on this? Oh, no. Are you aware that this is a problem? Oh, yes. Like, what? Okay, so why aren't we doing something about it? Yeah. You know, it's so anyway, but it does give me great hope. I will say this. My kids are Gen Z, and they are so far advanced from even me on things. You know, they're like, Mommy, why do we even celebrate Thanksgiving? this is a terrible holiday. They're pushing me to be better. So I do hold some hope, but parents, we have the first 8 years to frame our kids' understanding of the world. And we have to raise them to be anti-racist from the beginning, because it's very difficult once they're programmed to get them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you touched on that because, in the last thing I'll say about it, and I'll move on to the next question, but another question I asked the young girls, I said, what would you want white parents to know so that they can, start to teach their kids about empathy and things of that sort. And I think about one young lady and she said, I just want to be seen. I just want you to see me how you see your daughter, how you see your mother, and treat me that way too. And it really stuck with me because it really is this empathy, right? And that's the next question I was going to ask you, Karen, is, so often I hear, white men and women saying, how do you build relationships with women of color? How do you build relationships, start friendships with them? And I think people act like we're not human beings, like you wouldn't make friends with somebody else, but what would you say to them on how to start building authentic relationships with, women of color and Black women and just people of color in general?
Right. Well, isn't that so sad as you're saying that this is even a question? But okay, it is really important to understand what frequently goes wrong in interracial interactions. So white people come into these interactions wanting to be liked, feeling super self-conscious because we don't have a lot of experience relating across difference. And then we're seeking some kind of point of commonality. And so all of that goes into our brain and we're like, oh, I know people of color are super casual. So let me act super casual and then she will like me and affirm that I'm not racist, because that's what we really want. We want a Black person to tell us, oh no, you're not racist. And then people of color come into these interactions with very different expectations. They want to be respected. They want to be seen as an individual, not as a representative of their entire race. And they have zero desire to affirm to white people that we're not racist. So when white people act too casual and seek this affirmation, Black people, people of color take it as a sign of disrespect. And that is why we go so far apart. So I would say, do your homework. Don't expect a Black person to educate you about things. Certainly don't expect a Black person to assuage your feelings of guilt. Especially I would say since George Floyd, so many white people are reaching out and it's centering their own feelings and not like, how can I support you? And then I would say, signal. Don't come empty-handed. Like I always bring a bottle of champagne or some kind of you know what I'm saying? Like, and then I just sit and listen, right? And I never compare what I am going through to what she is going through. I just sit and listen. And then how can I support? What can I do? Like, let's figure out a plan of specific things that I'm going to do to help out in this situation. And often just sitting and listening is the greatest thing I can do, right? And affirming what you are experiencing is real, and it's wrong. And I'm so sorry you're going through this. But again, I am not saying educate me. I'm treating you as Minda Harts, lover of TV shows and music, and you know what I'm saying, and not being like, you are a Black woman, avatar type person. No, you are a person.
I appreciate that. And I love that you said so much, but the other thing I think that is important of what you said is stop comparing, right? Because I feel like that is the very dangerous place that sometimes white women slide into. Like, what about me? Yeah.
White women, we have to fill that our own selves, like through self-care, getting enough rest, getting enough, working on ourselves and our own self-confidence enough to not coming into this thing about wanting to center ourselves.
That part. Well, you alluded to it. I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics, Karen, and I could, every guest I ask them what their
Yes.
favorite rap lyric is and why.
Yeah. Well, so I live in the Bay Area. There's so many amazing Black women artists: Jennifer Johns, Ryan Nicole, Dominique Jones, Yanni. Like, there's all these great artists who I love their music. But when I think about like really well-known rap music, I love Childish Gambino, "This Is America," and I love Kendrick Lamar. I love Myself, because that's what I teach like the foundation of being able to be a good ally, the foundation of building a relationship is to stop listening to all these voices who are trying to teach you to hate yourself and love yourself. And then when you are authentically in loving yourself and forgiving yourself for your mistakes that you make, then you can build authentic relationships based in trust, and you're not seeking validation. I'm not coming to Minda and saying, love me so I'll feel better about myself, right? I already feel good about myself, and now I can connect with Minda, and together we can build a relationship based in trust.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I love that you chose Kendrick, which is a California artist, so that works for me. The other question, Karen, is, our leaders are watching. Everybody is a leader in their own right. What's one tip you would give everybody on how to make the workplace better than we found it?
I would say make empathy a daily habit. Every single day, try to learn about someone else's experience, whether it's watching a movie or reading a book or having a cup of coffee with someone, going on a walk with someone, reading some poetry. It's like I'm constantly pushing myself to like learn more about people's different experiences. And that's what it's going to take when we see each other as equals, when we do what Audre Lorde told us we have to do, develop these patterns of relating across difference as equals. That's how we're going to transform the workplace and our society.
Perfect. Mic drop. I love it. We have time for one more question. This is so good. I hope that each of you have gotten something out of the conversation. Make sure you share it too, because we want more people to hear it and understand what's going on, especially not just for this week, but beyond, inside and outside the workplace. Karen, we have this question has been asked a couple times, but in different ways. But what do you tell white people who say that they can't find top Black talent in the workforce?
Go to Afrotech. I mean, I saw someone tweeted this out. If you don't have Black talent in the workplace, it's either because you don't want Black talent in the workplace or because you don't care to create conditions in which Black talent can thrive in the workplace. There is top talent out there, and they all know each other too. So when you're recruiting and hiring and one has a negative experience, guess what? Your brand is diminished and you're not going to get other applicants. So make sure that you do your work before you recruit and hire so that people have a good experience. And just be honest with them. Say, hey, listen, this is really important to me. We may not be getting it right. So I have an open door. Anything you're experiencing that's not right, come in here and tell me, and we're going to convert on it and then make good on that. Let's just be honest with each other, okay? If this were easy, we would not be where we are 50 years after a movement succeeded in changing our laws to ban discrimination. So we just have to be honest with each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Karen, this has been such a great conversation. Is there any final thoughts that you just like to share with everybody?
White women, if we vote the way we did in 2016, we are canceled. Okay. So if you have not voted, please go out and vote. Get your friends to vote. This is the most important election of our lifetimes. And it's only the start. Like, just getting the right people in the seats does not mean we're going to get the right policies, right?
Mhm.
And let's use everything the collective grief and trauma of 2020 to make 2021 a year of healing and actual transformation, and of listening to each other, supporting one another, and working on all of these different issues simultaneously, because they're all super important. But it starts with centering Black people, and changing the policies that are harming Black people, and that's going to benefit everybody. Okay, that's not what I always say is, like, if Black people are improving, guess what? Everybody is improving.
Yes, well said. And people always ask me, how do I be an ally? What does an ally look like? You want to know? Come very close to the screen. You want to know what an ally looks like? It's voting Donald Trump out. That's what an ally looks like. That's it. That's it. Because, like Karen said, I don't know if we can recover if another high group of white women in particular vote him back in. I really don't know. That will bring Karen back on if that for a part two if we. but listen, Karen, where can people hire you, support you, bring you in, follow you, all the things?
Thank you so much. I'm at racyconversations.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's my most active social media. I'm also on Twitter at Fleshman Karen. I'm seeking a publisher for White Women We Need to Talk. I have the whole manuscript ready. So if you know any awesome editors, publishers, please let me know. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you to everyone who's made time and space for this conversation today. Thank you, Minda, for giving me this opportunity to share. I know your community loves you so much. You've done such an amazing job of building community, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of it.
Well, I'm happy to be in community with you. You've helped me secure my seats at tables too. And so I'm just appreciative of our friendship, and each of us, we're growing and learning together. I want to say just thank you for your time. Definitely connect with Karen, hire her, bring her in, consult. She does that too. So if you need some assistance in that area, please connect with her. Also, again, thank you so much for joining this conversation. I know that you could be spending your time any kind of way, but you show up here on Mondays at noon, and I'm so appreciative of you. And the last thing that I'll say is, I know tomorrow is a big day. If you're watching this on Monday, tomorrow is election day. Get to the polls. But also, I'm hosting what I call Touch and Agree, where I have opened up Zoom, and I have DJ Steve Vassar from 4 to 6. He's just going to play all of our favorite songs, well, mostly mine, but hopefully yours too. And I want you to just come. We're not going to be talking. We're just going to be vibing. You can log in and just do whatever you want, but I just want to create space so that we can touch and agree, manifest and harness all of this energy for change. And so I dropped the link inside of the chat. And so again, everybody have a great week. Thank you again, Karen. We'll see you next Monday.
Thank you. Bye, Minda.